Good morning, everyone. My name is Iswa Pibnicki, but I prefer to be called Izzy. I always look forward to the Advocates for Adults with Autism Awards event. I am sorry we're not together in person, but I am glad you could join us this morning online. The program will start soon. In the meantime, I'm having my breakfast. I'm eating my delicious granola from Spectrum Bakes. I have my Yes You Can notebook ready to jot down ideas while watching the event. Did you get your breakfast package from us? If not, you could still order. We have a few left. Just one more minute to the start of the Advocates for Adults with Autism Awards.
No smiles. Welcome to our 4th Advocates for Adults with Autism Awards. I'm so happy you're here joining us today. We're here today to honor 4 outstanding individuals who have had meaningful impact on the lives of adolescents and adults with autism spectrum disorders. Jodi DiPiazza, Leanne Kupferberg, Marc Carter, and Peter Gerhardt. We are also here to learn how Yes She Can helps young women with autism and learning disabilities develop job skills and to help us raise funds to continue our work. Why do we honor people who advocate for adults with autism? Many people think of autism as a childhood disorder, but in fact, autism clinical experts consider it a lifelong disability for most people with that diagnosis. When your child receives special education services from your school district, many parents tend to focus on the current year's services and perhaps next year's services. Maybe as a parent you think, oh, 1 more year of speech therapy and we're all done. I thought that. But the time my daughter turned to 8th grade, I began to think about her future needs. That year I heard one of our honorees, Peter Gerhart, speak to a room full of parents, and I was left shaking. I learned that unlike for most adults, the life options were very limited for those with moderate to severe developmental disabilities. Most lived at home with their parents or in group homes and attended day habilitation programs. But what about those who have the potential and desire to have more independence and a job? No one knew. That's because, this expert explained, while there were more than 2,000 studies about autism, only 3 focused on adults. I wanted Isabel to be one of the 20% who did have a job. So to ensure that, I founded Yes She Can for her and other young women like her, so that they would develop the essential skills needed for employment. Shortly after that, in 2014, the Ireland Family Foundation hosted a conference on employment for people with autism. People came from across the country. About 20 families presented how they created businesses to employ people with autism or train them to work in established businesses. And so a whole movement started called Autism at Work. And I'm really proud that Yes She Can is part of that movement. We need you to be allies with us. We need you to help encourage businesses to hire more people with autism. We need you to hire people with autism and to support businesses that do. Now I'd like to introduce you to our devoted board of directors. Pat Salner, Amy Gravino, Jessica Markowitz, Deborah Solomon, and Charlie Beener. I'd like to thank our very generous sponsors, Jesse and Joan Kupferberg Family Foundation, the Hillebrand Foundation, Clarfeld Wealth Management, Foundation for Empowering Citizens with Autism, Extraordinary Ventures New York, the Ireland Family Foundation, Extraordinary Ventures, Autism Science Foundation, Lippman Crooks, Next for Autism, the Westchester Bank, Anderson Center for Autism, Doris and Emile Perez, Patricia and Andrew Salner, the Pinnacle School, and Spectrum Designs. We were supposed to celebrate in person last March, so while we may be physically distant now, we're still socially connected. Now let's hear about what Yes She Can has been doing over the last 6 months to support our young women with autism and address the pandemic. For the past 6 years, our program has been essential for young women with autism and learning disabilities who participate in our Job Skills program. Last March, because of the pandemic, Yes She Can needed to close Girl Again Resale Boutique, where our Job Skills program operates. Our young women need consistency and routine, as well as social engagement that our program provides. So while the world shut down, Yes She Can's board of directors and staff believed it was critical for us to find a way to continue providing our services. So within a few weeks of closing, Leslie Catan, our director of training programs, set up all of our trainees on Zoom for small group coaching and team meetings. This became a new skill and everyone was learning together.
Please talk a little clearer, please.
Sure. I'm trying my best.
Man, you guys, this is a test in our patience, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely.
Before the store closed, the trainees took home doll merchandise. They then applied the business processes and skills they had learned at the store, such as researching merchandise, packaging outfits, and pricing them. And then, through online coaching, they learned new skills like photographing products from many angles and writing detailed descriptions that would appeal to collectors who shop online. They learned how to upload these to our Google Share Drive, and then they put them on the online store. While we lost all of our store sales this spring, we doubled our sales from online orders. Between the anxiety caused by the pandemic and the distress and outrage over racial inequality in the news, our coaches needed to provide extra counseling to our trainees in this very stressful time.
Some trainees have more difficulty accepting criticism.
Is there anybody on the call that feels that's something they're still struggling with, accepting constructive criticism? Is that hard for anybody else?
That's me.
Me.
Using our new virtual training room, we have been taking this opportunity to develop job exploration skills. Trainees have learned how to assess their own work skills and personal attributes. They created resumes and LinkedIn profiles.
Mara, it's just you and me tomorrow, so we're going to work on these sheets, okay? So you can talk about them, think about it, but we'll work on them together tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
They had networking lessons from our board members, Deborah Solomon and Amy Gravino.
When you work at Girl Again and you train, you feel so comfortable there. Everyone feel comfortable and people really are looking out for you. Well, that is the same thing you need to learn when you're going to work someplace. It needs to be a good match for who you are in your work, but also as well as someone that you feel comfortable working for.
Vicki just made a very interesting comment about thinking that she didn't have enough connections on LinkedIn. The connections you have on LinkedIn and the connections you make from networking, it's not so much about quantity as quality. And the things that make networking easier, and the number one I would say is self-awareness, is knowing who you are.
Our coaches, staff, and trainees have all made the most out of this unexpected crisis. We look forward to returning to our training program at Girl Again Boutique, where we can engage with our customers and with you. Jody DiPiazza is a musical prodigy who has been composing and performing music for most of her 18 years. This past spring, Jody graduated from the prestigious Maine's College of Music Preparatory Division of the New School in the city of New York. Jody was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. At the age of 9, Jody wrote and performed a song, Heroes for Autism, for Toys R Us as part of an Autism Speaks fundraising campaign. When she was 11, Jody performed a nationally televised duet with pop star Katy Perry for autism fundraiser called Night of Too Many Stars. This duet became an internet sensation. Jody received thousands of emails and cards and letters, speaking of the hope and inspiration the performance inspired. Since then, she's appeared in over 100 charitable events. Jody returned 2 more times to Night of Too Many Stars. At 14, she performed a duet with Weird Al Yankovic with his song Yoda. This performance also went viral. And at 16, Jody performed the song Rise Up with Cynthia Erivo, backed by Questlove and The Roots. Jody is a high school senior and continues to study music and perform. She plans to attend college and pursue a career in music. Like Jody, my daughter Isabel is a Disney World fanatic. On one of our many trips, we met 7-year-old Jody and her mother and father on a boat ride from the Magic Kingdom to our hotel. Despite their age difference, the girls really seemed to connect. 5 years later, we saw Jody performing with Katy Perry on TV, and Izzy said, "Isn't that the girl we met on the boat ride?" It took a while, but I found Jody's mom, Michelle, and she invited us to see Jody perform on Broadway in 2018 when Jody was only 16 years old. Jody is so generous with her talents and support of people with autism. So it is my honor to present Jody with this special award today.
I'm so honored to receive an award from Yes She Can. It has such a terrific mission, helping young women with autism develop job skills. I am going to perform a couple songs. I hope you like them, and I would also like to congratulate all the other honorees.
Wasn't Jody fantastic? Bravo! Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Have you had a chance yet to check out our program journal? It's digital, and you can read all about Yes She Can's honorees, our program, and our sponsors. My name is Amy Gravino, and I am an international speaker, autism sexuality advocate, and relationship coach in the Center for Adult Autism Services at Rutgers University. I was also honored at the Yes She Can Awards as an autism advocate in 2017. I now serve on the board of Yes She Can because I believe in our mission and how Yes She Can makes a positive difference in the lives of autistic women. When I was in college, and even after I graduated, there were no programs like Yes She Can. Navigating the world of employment on my own was challenging, and perhaps some of the heartache and disappointment I experienced could have been lessened if I'd had access to a program like Yes She Can. In these especially difficult times, young women with autism need our program more than ever. Yes She Can provides a consistent support system for our participants. Now that the program is virtual, we have been able to include more teens and young women who do not live locally, but can participate via Zoom. You can do your part to help sustain our program by making a contribution today. On the screen, you will see the names of donors who have already contributed when they registered for our event. Thank you so much to all of you. Every donation has a meaningful impact, and no contribution is too small or too large. Here's how you can contribute this morning. It's easy and takes just a few moments. Go get your mobile phone. I'll wait. To pledge, send a text to 970-840-9000, and in the message, write the letters YSC, followed by a space, then the amount of your pledge, followed by another space, and then your name. If you'd prefer to donate anonymously, simply leave the last part blank. You will then receive a link to our donation page. Just enter the amount of your tax-deductible pledge and your contact information on our secure form. If you don't have a mobile phone, you can go to yesshecaninc.com and click on the donate button. Again, here's how to pledge. Send a text to 970-840-9000, and in the message, write the letters YSC, followed by a space, then the amount of your pledge, followed by another space, and then your name. We would love to see your name on our Fundometer. So go ahead, give generously, and make a difference in the lives of autistic women today. Our board members are following along, and I would like to acknowledge you, our donors. A special thank you to Howard Blass, Patty Colombo, and Bonnie and Andrew Kaplan for your generous donations.
On behalf of Westchester County and the Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health, I would like to congratulate you on your virtual Yes She Can breakfast. My name is Michael Orth, and I have the privilege of serving as the Commissioner of the Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health. Our department has had the privilege to partner with Marjorie and her team, and we have visited the store and seen firsthand the impact that the program has had on so many young women. The experiences they receive, the meaningful employment opportunities, and all the support is priceless. On behalf of the Department of Community Mental Health, we'd like to also congratulate our honorees for the program and wish them all the best of luck. Thank you, Marjorie. Thanks, Yes She Can, and we look forward to a continued partnership. Enjoy the breakfast.
Leanne Carter is a writer, journalist, and blogger. Leanne's essays have been published in major newspapers, journals, and media websites. After her son Mickey was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in 1994, Leanne became an advocate for the autism community and a contributor to Autism Speaks, Autism Science Foundation, Next for Autism, and Citizens United for Research in Epilepsy. Her memoir, Ketchup is My Favorite Vegetable, A Family Grows Up with Autism, is a winner of the 2017 American Society of Journalists and Authors Outstanding Book Award. A longtime community activist, Leanne co-founded Child, a special education PTA in Scarsdale, New York, and applied her writing skills to co-author a parent resource handbook for the school district. I met Leanne in 2004 when my daughter Isabel and her son Mickey attended a religious education program designed for Jewish children with developmental and learning disabilities. It wasn't that long ago that children with disabilities were excluded from participating with their typical peers in religious school and ceremonies. Mickey is now a 28-year-old young man. After Leanne's essay about nurturing her son's spiritual life appeared in the New York Times last year, she received thousands of shares and comments of appreciation online. Liane uses her writing to draw the public's attention to the issues and challenges of adults with autism, particularly those who rely on their families for lifelong support. I am proud to call Liane my friend, and in my role at Yes She Can, I am honored to present her with this award today.
Thank you to our good friend Marjorie for this honor, and congratulations to our fellow honorees Jody and Peter. I met Marjorie 16 years ago when our kids attended the same special needs religious school program. Marjorie is smart, talented, and tenacious, and I'm grateful for all that she does for our autism community. Marc and I have two sons. Our younger one, Mickey, is autistic. 20-something years ago when he was diagnosed, it was the earthquake at the center of our lives. But there has been a silver lining. When you have a disabled child, you will meet some of the best people you never wanted to know, and they will be your lifeline. When Mickey was diagnosed back in the mid-90s, there wasn't much information available about autism. You couldn't look up autism on Google because the internet barely existed. I was hungry to find a book called What to Expect When Your Child is Autistic, but it didn't exist. The only books I found were written by parents about their young children, and they all pretty much followed the same narrative. This is how I cured my kid, and you can too. So eventually, I decided I'd have to be the one to write the book I wish I'd had when Mickey was first diagnosed. I wanted to be realistic, but hopeful and reassuring. I wanted to help other parents avoid the mistakes we made, and trust me, we made a lot of them. I wanted people to see that it is possible to create an ordinary family life, even when you're dealing with the extraordinary needs of an autistic child. I wrote it for other autism parents to let them know they weren't alone, of course, but I also wrote it to help educate the community at large, whose lives weren't impacted by autism. After the book was published, it was gratifying to hear from social workers and teachers and school psychologists who said it was eye-opening to them as professionals to hear a parent's perspective. And I was especially glad to hear from general readers who said they hadn't known much about autism but had learned a lot. The book documented where we'd been and where we still needed to go. Which brings me to now. I'm still writing, and I'm still on a mission to educate, because here's the thing. Our son will be an autistic adult for much, much longer than he was an autistic child. He isn't fully able to advocate for himself, so as his parents, we still need to do the heavy lifting. IDEA guaranteed him an education, but after the age of 21, all the mandated supports and services vanish. Services for disabled adults are abysmal. Once that little yellow school bus stops coming to our front door, it's like falling off a cliff. The school system spent 16 years educating him, but now what? Is he supposed to languish at home in front of the TV for the next 60 years? Just this past May, the CDC reported that 2.2% of American adults have an autism spectrum disorder. That adds up to 5.4 million people. Who is looking out for them? Our advocacy hasn't stopped. It can't stop. Our adult children need better evidence-based treatments and services, employment opportunities, health care, safe and affordable housing. Unfortunately, we live in a society where it's still considered okay to marginalize and dismiss disabled people, to other them. People with disabilities are just as human, have just as many needs and desires as neurotypical folks. They deserve that most basic of human rights, a life filled with meaning and purpose. Marc and I want what all parents want for all their children, to have loving friends, good health, work that is meaningful to them, and to live the most satisfying, safe, independent lives they can. The question is, How do we go about ensuring they get what they need? Marc is going to talk next about some of the work we've been doing. Thank you again, Marjorie, and Yes She Can, for this honor and for your unwavering commitment to our community.
Marc Carter is the happy husband of Leanne Carter and the proud father of sons Jonathan and Mickey. For more than 20 years, Marc has been actively involved in supporting the autism and disabled community's efforts in achieving equity status in our society. He has served on the board of directors of several nonprofit organizations addressing the needs of individuals with autism, including the Hawthorne Foundation, Empowering Citizens with Autism, Next for Neighbors, and Ramapo for Children. He has also been active in public education as a former member of the Scarsdale, New York District School Board, and he currently serves on the board for the Mount Pleasant Cottage School District. Marc chaired the Scarsdale Village Council on People with Disabilities, where he facilitated the development of the Disabled Citizen First Emergency Responder Alert Form. He and Leanne co-founded the Scarsdale Alternative League, which provides team-based recreational activities for children with disabilities who could not participate in the mainstream rec department activities. Marc is retired from a 40-year career in management consulting, specializing in healthcare information systems technology, and he is now volunteering his expertise for other nonprofits. I first met Marc when he brought Mickey to the religious education program on Sundays. He's a devoted father and advocate for all people with autism, and I am delighted to present this award to him today.
I would also like to express my thanks to Marjorie for this honor, and congratulations to Jody and Peter. Following Liane is always a tough act, as we are joined at the hip. We are a team, and we often joke that we are two bodies but with one mind. I would like to pick up on the point she made. We live in a society where it's considered okay to marginalize and dismiss disabled people, to other them. People with disabilities are just as human, have just as many needs and desires as neurotypical folks. They deserve that most basic of human rights, a life filled with meaning and purpose. They deserve equity, but what we get is benign neglect, where doing the bare minimum is good enough, whether it's in education, employment, or housing. We live in a society where day have mall walking or sitting in the park qualifies as productive community involvement and is considered equivalent by the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, OPWDD, as learning meaningful vocational, social, and life skills. We live in a society where housing discrimination has been legalized through the New York State Padovan law, which allows group home development to be restricted on the basis of community oversaturation, a term which is not defined in that law. Leanne and I, as well as other parents, have found that we cannot wait for society at large and government agencies to step in and provide meaningful opportunities and services for our son. We as parents have stepped up to the plate to create our own service systems, just as Marjorie has, but she can, and other parent-driven organizations like Extraordinary Ventures New York and Mount Kisco, Spectrum Design's Nicholas Center in Port Washington, which is expanding to Pleasantville, and of course, Foundation of Empowering People with Autism, FECA, which founded the Devereaux Millwood Learning Center, now located in Mount Kisco. Both Leanne and I learned that you cannot depend on the kindness of strangers. You need to create opportunities and solutions for your child. You see the problem, the inequity, and you try to solve it. The best way to do this is to reach out to your fellow travelers on this journey and get organized. Early on, Lee and other parents in the Scarsdale School District determined that children having individual learning differences were not being well served by the school system. So they formed CHILD, a special ed PTA, to advocate for special needs children. They produced a well-received newsletter and pooled together the knowledge to create a highly successful community and educational resource guide for parents. It was a lot of work, but the results were worth it. It gave us a seat at the table. The district started paying attention. 20 years later, the district is still paying meaningful attention. Our older son, John, benefited from playing rec soccer and basketball, but there was nothing for children requiring additional supports. Rec coaches, who were parents, were focused on winning and played the most skilled children, leaving our children sit and watch on the grass or the bench. If we let our children sit on the sidelines, we would be complicit in allowing this inequity. We and other parents created the Alternative League, which had its own dedicated coach to parallel the 3-season rec department program. Again, it was a lot of work, but the results of having our kids learn sports and social skills were immeasurable. Most recently, we and 11 other founding families have been actively engaged in supporting Spectrum Design's Nicholas Center expansion into Westchester. As many of you know, there is a paucity of meaningful employment opportunities in the county, and adults like Mickey are undertrained and underemployed. Spectrum Designs, a highly successful branded goods business originally started by parents with children on the spectrum, will help alleviate that situation by providing an integrated work environment, while the Nicholas Center will provide community-based programming and job training supports with adults with ASD. The 12 families found the real estate and are leading the development effort. We hope to be fully operational this October. Again, a lot of work, but it will provide lifelong skills training. As my wife knows very well, I am a bottom line type of guy. So here is the bottom line. You can't wait for others to do it for you. You have to bite the bullet, define your goals, get organized, work with other families, figure out what needs to get done, and then just do it. No one says it will be easy, but it will be worth it for your child, for your family, and the community. And you'll meet some terrific people along the way. Thank you.
My name is Nancy Miller Glenner, and I'm Mara Glenner's mom. She's a trainee here at Girl Again since July 2018. She has been diagnosed with developmental disabilities since the age of 2 and with learning disabilities since the age of 2. I was in a salon and someone who knows Mara very well dropped a pamphlet into my lap. For the first time ever, there was hope for Mara's future. They said, we'll have her work here, we'll have her train here, she has potential. She's more motivated, she's getting her routine set. It's any work skills that any person who doesn't have a disability would need to have. She is now caring about that. With a little gentle, loving push and support, she will go through one test to the next, to the next.
I'm so proud of seeing on transactions because there's so many steps, when someone buys something. Sometimes you have these team meetings, you learn how to do some of that stuff.
Now I have more expectations for Mara. There's a lot more things that she needs to do more independently, but I feel like she'll get there because yes, she can.
I'm Mackenzie, I'm 23 years old. I've been working here for about 2.5 years. When I was younger, my diagnosis was more focused on my physical disabilities. I have mild CP. We were unaware of the mental challenges I had.
Fast forward to she's taking courses at community college, and she started out really well, and all of a sudden it was almost like she imploded. She had this breakdown. She was kind of happy that she got a diagnosis of autism because she was starting to think there was something really wrong with her. We found Yes She Can, and it was a godsend. I can't even tell you. Mackenzie has blossomed so much from being here.
Before Yes She Can, I was very shy, very introverted. I couldn't even answer the phone.
She would have anxiety. You put her out in a big world and it's too much. It's overwhelming. So she started to learn skills on how to deal with that. And that's what she was learning with Girl Again, besides skills for working. She learned how to interact with people.
working in Yes She Can has proven that I can work in a retail job. I can work with a group of people. I can have any job I want.
I remember being in a psychiatrist's office, and he said to me, you know, you have to realize that she's never going to be the person that you want her to be. And I said, no. I said, she's going to be the person that she wants to be, and she can do anything she wants.
I want to get a job. I want to move out of my parents' home. I want to start being a real adult, like living on my own and having a life outside of my parents and my family. Just start my life truly.
Mara and Mackenzie are just two of the many young women whose lives have changed thanks to Yes She Can. Each of our trainees has different passions and interests, but the one thing they all have in common is a desire to find a job where they can use their skills and where they can feel valued. We know this is a difficult time for employment, but that is not holding us back. Our coaches are helping trainees to work on developing their networks and to explore different careers. Yes She Can is currently engaged in an exciting partnership with Tech Kids Unlimited to teach our trainees how to create podcasts. Our primary focus within the podcast is on learning about careers. Mara just recorded an informational interview of her sister, who is a high school theater teacher, and is now learning how to edit the recording to produce her podcast. This will be part of the Yes She Can Trainee podcast series on careers. Stay tuned for more. Your contributions today will enable us to continue this innovative and meaningful work. Thank you to everyone who has already contributed. Your donations will help to sustain our program. Here's how you can text to pledge. Send a text to 970-840-9000, and in the message, write the letters YSC, followed by a space, then the amount of your pledge, followed by another space, and then your name. If you'd prefer to donate anonymously, simply leave the last part blank. Thank you so much. A special thank you to Michael Beloff, Nancy Miller-Glenner, and Danny and Robin Morris for your generous donations. Dr. Peter Gerhart is the Executive Director of the Epic School in Paramus, New Jersey. Peter is the founding chairman and current co-chair of the Scientific Council for the Organization for Autism Research. He is a clinician and administrator with more than 35 years of experience working with autistic adolescents and adults, who he counts not only as clients and students, but as friends. Peter is a remarkable human being, and I am proud to call him my colleague and my friend. But what makes Peter truly remarkable is that he will never tell you that he is remarkable. He will never tell you all that he has accomplished, the hallmarks of his career, and he will never say that he is a pioneer in the field of autism. Instead, Peter leads by example, operating under the auspices of one simple, important truth, a truth that professionals and society have ignored for so long. Autistic children grow up, and they become autistic adults. I can't tell you the exact moment when I first met Peter, because I cannot remember a time before his presence became part of my world. It feels as though I've always been keenly aware of Peter, always been able to recognize the sonorous timbre of his distinct voice anywhere I went, even from the opposite end of a conference hallway. Peter and I began presenting on the topic of autism and sexuality together in 2012. Our partnership has become one of the greatest joys of my career, as has being able to stand beside him and watch him work his magic on an audience. But now I also understand his talent as an educator, because it was he who saw what I could be and gave me the chance to be that, just as he does with every autistic child who walks in the door of his school. I adore Peter Gerhardt, and I am proud and honored to be presenting him with this award today. It is my distinct pleasure to present the Yes She Can Advocates for Adults with Autism Outstanding Clinician Award to my friend, Dr. Peter Gerhardt.
Thank you, Amy, so much. This is the award, everybody. Thank you very much. That was easily the best introduction I've ever gotten in my life, Amy. And the feeling is very, very mutual. Like, I adore you. You are one of my best friends. I have tremendous respect for your work. So thank you very, very much. That alone made my day. I also want to thank Marjorie Madfus and Yes She Can for thinking about me and putting me among this very high profile panel of awardees. So I thank Yes She Can and Marjorie very, very much, and I congratulate my co-awardees this year. It's been an interesting journey. I've been doing this for a very long time, and when I first started, it was an era where professionals really did kind of know all there was to know, which wasn't a lot, and parents really didn't know much. But everybody had to work together, and it somehow worked. Today, we've evolved, I think, into a real partnership with everybody, that it's not just a partnership with parents, it's a partnership with their children, whether they're adults or not. And my job isn't to make somebody not have autism. My job is to give a person with autism the best life they possibly can, to give them the options in their life that anybody should have and anybody should enjoy. And it's been a really interesting trip, and I can't imagine doing anything else. You know, I've never done anything else with my adult life than this. How many people can say that today in any field, that they started when they were 20? And I just had my 61st birthday, and I'm still doing this stuff and still learning. One thing that Amy didn't say is that whatever I may have done to help her along, she's repaid me in many ways, but also by being a teacher many times, providing me with her insight and helping me realize things and see things from a different perspective and how I might best understand. So I owe you a significant debt of gratitude. And I think just in closing, say that to everybody, whether you're a professional or a parent or a person on the spectrum, whoever, there's a lot more that you don't know than that you do know. So hubris and ego, let it go. We're all in this together. We're all equals. So let's figure out how collectively we get everything to the next stage and just never stop learning. So I thank you, Amy, again for that wonderful introduction. I thank Marjorie and Yes She Can for this award. And I thank all of you for coming in online today to see this. So thank you all very, very much. I'm quite honored.
Well, I'm Temple Grandin, a professor of animal science at Colorado State University. My last airplane trip was March 12th because everything has either been canceled or put online. One of the things that's hard for a lot of people on the spectrum is remembering sequence. I have no memory for sequence. Like when I had a job in a dairy, when I was in graduate school, they had a checklist on the wall, pilot's checklist, how to set up the milking equipment and how to take it down and clean it. And if you did it wrong, you could run soapy water into the bulk tank and run the whole bulk tank, full of milk. Now, what I used to do is I'd make my own checklist. I said, okay, now I need to just make my own set of directions of how to do this. And then after I had done the new process for several weeks, I could throw that checklist away. But in the beginning, I would need it. There's a real problem with remembering sequence.
It's not just about remembering the steps, Marjorie. It's also the fact that one big task is very overwhelming sometimes, and it is in those smaller pieces, it's easier to manage. So it's not about, oh, I have to do this huge thing. It's about, I have to do this first one thing.
Do you have any thoughts on helping businesses who we are encouraging to employ people with autism, thoughts on how to make them feel a little more comfortable that some of these kinds of adjustments are necessary and effective?
Well, first of all, we're on a technology right now that's probably made by people with a certain degree of autism. What brings you tech? Mild autism. Because things and engineering and stuff like that's more interesting than, than social. A brain can be more cognitive, or a brain can be more social. But the autistic brain basically has tons of memory. If you're into computers, it's an Intel 286 chip. And you need to explain to employers that for certain jobs, they'll take longer to train, but then they'll do it much better.
I think something else that might help convince employers is to frame it a little differently, to say you're not just investing in this one person. This is not just about accommodating one employee. This is about the good of the company. And this is what they're going to be able to bring in this job and what it's going to do for the company. So
that's right.
So just a little bit more about some of the other young ladies. They have a variety of job interests. One is interested in doing makeup and hair, and somebody else is interested in working with animals, and somebody else is interested in working, with little children. So we have quite a range. So even though our store, we're learning skills in the environment of a retail store, we're not necessarily training people to go into retail.
Okay, well, that's fine. And then that store serves as a stepping stone. And one of the things I've seen with a lot of voc rehab people is they don't differentiate where maybe bagging groceries is a suitable career for certain clients and others where it's a stepping stone. Because I will tell every student, try on jobs. Okay, student wants to be a veterinarian. Have you ever worked in the vet's office? You need to find out if that's what you really want to do. Because it's also important to say, okay, I tried something and I found out I hated it.
Yes.
And people ask me, well, how did I get interested in the cattle industry? I was exposed as a teenager.
Our trainees really need to learn how to explore careers, even if they don't have a chance to actually do them. So they first have to start doing
that's right.
research, right?
That's good.
So we're setting up informational interviews, and volunteers from a company called Regeneron are going to work with us and have sessions. So we're going to teach our trainees how to have these kinds of conversations where they're not interviewing for a job. They're trying to learn about what somebody else does. So that's what we have that set up for October.
No, that totally makes sense. I have a book, Developing Talents, and I talked about that years ago in the Developing Talents book. And then also I have a book, The Way I See It, which is, there's now 16 people that were diagnosed later in life, all had different jobs, all different types, ranging from tech to tour guide, to real estate sales, a veterinarian. And one of the things that helped a lot of these people to get jobs was learning work skills early in childhood, things like paper routes. And I know that's gone now. We need to find paper route substitutes.
We have this tendency, especially with people on the spectrum, that everything has to be figured out. We have to have, this is what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
No.
We're all, it's a journey. It's a process for all of us. Like, nobody has to have the whole life figured out by the time they're 21.
Well, the same thing with me. I thought I was going to be an experimental psychologist studying optical illusions. But
that's cool. That's very specific.
But the things I learned about optical illusions helped me with my livestock work, because the first thing I looked at was how cattle react to shadows and things like that.
Where you start doesn't necessarily mean where you're going to end, but those skills, you keep acquiring more skills.
Well, that's absolutely right.
So I want to thank you so much for having this conversation with me and Amy. And I will
thank you for having me.
I'll send you a link to it, all right?
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. I'm going to leave the meeting now.
I really enjoyed having that conversation with Temple and Marjorie. Temple Grandin is probably the most famous autistic person in the world, and we appreciate her taking the time to talk with us. Not every autistic individual will become a college professor or a best-selling author, nor will they all become software developers or video game designers. But the goal of any career program is to help participants find out who they want to be and create strategies that will allow them to become that person. My career goal was to write poetry in a cottage in the Italian Alps. For so long, I didn't believe I had anything to offer society, or that my voice mattered. It took me many years to learn otherwise, but I can't help thinking of how much steadier my path might have been if I'd had someone to guide me. Yes, She Can is helping participants figure out who they want to be, what their skills are, what work environments would bring out their best qualities, and how to find employers that are open to supported employment. Your contributions today will help us to continue our job coaching and job exploration work, as well as enabling us to continue providing social supports and counseling. Thank you to everyone who has contributed today. A special thank you to Terrence O'Driscoll, Jonah Zimiles, and Gail Chen for your generous donations. One more reminder about how you can contribute. Send a text message to 970-840-9000, and in the message, write the letters YSC, followed by a space, then the amount of your pledge, followed by another space, and then your name. If you prefer to donate anonymously, simply leave the last part blank. Thank you again for all your support. Your contributions will have an immediate impact. You will also have the opportunity to continue donating after the event has ended. Now, let's sit back and enjoy more of the musical stylings of Jodi DiPiazza.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion, like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain, I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on, starting right now. I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song, and I don't really care if nobody else believes, but I still got a lot of fire left in me. I'm losing friends and I'm chasing sleep. Everybody's worried about me. I'm in too deep. Yes, I'm in too deep. And it's been 2 years since I missed my home. But there's a fire burning in my bones. I still believe. Yes, I still believe. In all those things I didn't say. Wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on, starting right now. I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song, and I don't really care if nobody else believes, but I still got a lot of fire left in me. A lot of fire left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion, like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on, starting right now. I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song, and I don't really care if nobody else believes, but I still got a lot of fire left in me. But I still got a lot of fight left in me.
We are now at the end of our virtual event. I hope you enjoyed Jody's performance and hearing from Leanne, Marc, and Peter, as well as Amy Gravino and Temple Grandin. I also hope you learned how Yes She Can is still helping our young women with autism develop job skills despite the pandemic. Our coaches and trainees are physically distant, but still emotionally and socially connected through our virtual training sessions. There is nothing like our program, so it's now even more essential that we continue with your help. The board and I would like to thank our generous sponsors for your dedication to our cause. We're almost at our goal. I am so grateful to everyone who has already made a contribution. If you haven't had a chance to do so today, please go to yesshecaninc.org and select Donate. It's very simple and we really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone. Be well, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.